Hello, everyone. I am Deb Scher, Artistic Director of Avaloch Farm Music Institute, and I am absolutely delighted to welcome you to Made at Avaloch, our new series created to celebrate the variety and excellence of the work Avaloch has supported. Each event will highlight one or two projects and will include discussions with musicians about process, as well as recorded performances of completed work. So far, Avaloch has hosted over 1,000 musicians in hundreds of groups and including dozens of composers. We hope you enjoy the diversity and depth of the genre and approaches to the creative process which will be presented here. Before we begin, however, I would like to thank a few people. First, our administrative team, Mason Donovan and Jenna Hall. Second, our musical team, Hannah Collins, Mike Compitello, Katherine Dowling, who joined me in creating these events. And last but certainly not least, Fred Tauber, without whose generosity the vision and inspiration of Avaloch would never have come to be. So, thank you for joining us for this ongoing celebration of creative work made at Avaloch.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another week of Made at Avaloch. I am super privileged to introduce our artists for this evening. This is aTonalHits, violin piano duo, Katha and Illya. And of course, Avaloch family, Avaloch viewers know them very well because their very beautiful Ives video is in fact the intro to the Made at Avaloch series. So if you recognize their beautiful faces, that's why. So Katha and Illya have been coming to Avaloch annually, I think, for many years now. So it's extra special to have you with us this evening. Welcome, Katha and Illya. Why don't you share a little bit about your ensemble and the music that we'll be hearing tonight?
Okay, go ahead.
Oh, you covered it so well that I don't know what to say anymore. So, yes, we are violin and piano. My name is Illya.
And I'm Katha. I'm the violinist, just to make that clear.
Yeah, I'm the pianist, and also this time I guess I'm a composer. I can finally say a little bit more that for this session I'm a little more of a composer.
So our group is aTonalHits. We always play together. It's violin and piano duo. We perform together. We also have a YouTube channel, which is where a lot of our interest goes. So we record and create new music, which is what Illya has brought for us today.
And this also has been actually a new development with the last year. We were doing a historic violin series that's kind of popular, and where Katha tries some of the Stradivarius violins and some of these amazing violins. And you can see some of this history on the YouTube. Yeah.
Wonderful. So we're going to start with some music. I'm really excited about this first video. Can you share with us the name of the piece? And of course, it is by our composer-performer, Illya.
You share.
No, but it's your piece.
Well, okay, all right. So this actually, I think this took a long time for me. We have a album coming out on September 23rd, where it's going to be all my music for the first time. It's something like this, and Avaloch is completely responsible for me actually composing. I always composed through school and I always liked that, but it was I never considered that to be serious. I just did it for myself, for fun. And at Avaloch, there is more time. I don't know. This piece, I think I wrote the first movement in 2016. Only in a few days, there was extra time. And, we started writing, and from that became a lot more music. And every one of these pieces was written at Avaloch on the CD.
That is so special. So we will hear first at Tokyo by Illya, performed by aTonalHits. Bravo, what an incredible piece, incredible performance, and of course such a really arresting and gripping video as well. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. I'd like to invite you to speak a bit more about this piece, and also if you'd like to share a bit more about your process of kind of matching video and music and presenting and sharing your art in this way.
Well, why don't you talk about movements first, and then I'll talk about the other piece.
About movements?
Yeah, because we just listened to that.
Ah, okay.
Movements.
Okay, so this is very tricky to really talk about, because I don't know where this is coming from. This music, it's almost guided by another force, and I don't. Again, I'm not a professionally trained composer. I went to study to play the piano in college, so it's. I don't have that insight where I spent all my time composing in the conservatory. So it's kind of hard to say where this music pours out from you and how it ends up on the piece of paper. But it almost happens like a performance for me, like when you are in a concert, and it sort of pours out, and I can't really say much more about that. I'm almost afraid to analyze it too much, because you always think it might stop. And the video, and in fact the name, came after the music. So it's almost, I was trying to match the name to the music. And we, together with Katha, we spent quite a bit of time in Japan So that's a very inspiring place, especially it was for me because I have never seen anything like it. And so this video, I'm always walking around with a camera and making some videos. So this video really just all came together with this, and I wanted to make this piece just a little bit of honor of these trips and these times. It's like a kind of like a diary for myself and for both of us too.
It also felt, I think we also both had this feeling that it kind of feels like a train actually on the album. In parenthesis, it's the secondary title is Train Songs. And one of my little girl students had actually come up with that title for us. She said it sounds so much like a trains, it should be Train Songs. And we were like, actually that fits really, really nicely. So that stuck a little bit.
Wonderful. So we, of course, will be linking in the comments to this album coming out on September 23rd. I'd invite you now to share with us a bit more of what your experiences have been like at Avaloch Farm. I know, Illya, you had mentioned your compositional life got a lot of its impetus there. I'd love to hear more about that process, as well as about your creative process and your many residencies at Avaloch, if you'd like to share that.
You're always surrounded by so much creativity at Avaloch, and composition is a big part of that creativity, at least the time that I was there. But I think it's always the case at Avaloch. So it's really inspiring to see that. And there is some extra time where you can go to the forest and to the lake and just relax this way, almost clear your mind this way. And we always come to work on a specific project, but always there is something that comes from that, something more that comes from that time. And so really this is what it is. It's just being around these talented and oftentimes famous composers, who are teaching and talking to them. And I think a lot of it is you just feed from the energy of other people. At least I did. I don't know.
I did too.
Yeah, what about you?
Well, I don't know. We've been coming to Avaloch for, I think this maybe would have been our 7th year, something like that, 6th or 7th. So almost since Avaloch began, and I'm really missing it this year. But coming to Avaloch it gives you just a little bit more peace and a little bit more time to think. But all of this extra time too, also, because we live in Brooklyn, so the difference from being in Brooklyn and just, your nose to the ground all the time and being out in Avaloch and having fresh air and being able to take a walk, all of this is, every time we go out and just walk, we're able to somehow think so much more clearly. And a lot of our ideas came from just that, ideas for videos, ideas for new projects, ideas for albums, repertoire, whatever, a lot of that just came from being able to walk down to the lake and just have that air and think clearly for once,
Yeah, you ask, I had a little more time to think. You ask about creative process, so I don't think that's important. I always write on the paper first, but this piece has 2 more movements, slow movement and another fast movement. And this was supposed to be what you just heard in Train Songs. It was supposed to be just a standalone piece. And so we came the following year, I believe it was 2017, and we recorded it at Avaloch, and that's where you see, this is actually the studio that you see in the video is where I wrote the piece the previous year. And But then I decided that I would like to extend it, and I wrote in 2017, after this video was shot, wrote the second movement. Then actually the third movement, I wrote it back in Brooklyn after I came back. And so the following year, I believe it's 2018 now, where we performed the whole piece. And we really got it at Avaloch. Yeah. And where you heard it. And we got it together for recording, and this is where now it's coming out in 2020 together with other pieces. So while every time I was going back, I was writing a little bit more, and yeah, so this was, I guess, the process, a little bit more about this process.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I also want to just point out to our listeners that while these pieces are being composed, you were also working on many other pieces at Avaloch. I know you had Desiree, your cellist, working on trios together, and also you come with composers who are writing new pieces for the both of you. So it's really an extraordinarily prolific output, I think, that I just personally have witnessed in our shared times at Avaloch.
And we were doing a lot of the Bach CDs, all the 6 sonatas. This was also pretty much every year we would come, we would play 1 or 2 and work on 1 or 2 Bach sonatas during this time at Avaloch to prepare it. But now that project is done, it's recorded, and you guys can hear it, and I hope you do.
Yes, I hope everyone does as well. I also recommend everyone sign up for your letter, because it will really enrich your week to, on Sunday, have a beautiful video from Katha and Illya to light up your life with creative inspiration. So why don't we hear some more music? I know we have some more videos, and this is of the solo violin Partita. Would you like to tell us a little bit about this work, or the process of learning it, or anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, sure. So Illya wrote this one for me again at Avaloch. The first 3 movements were written, recorded, and taped at Avaloch. Actually, where did we tape it? Oh, in Fred's Walden too, in that little cabin out in the apple orchard. So that's become one of our favorite places to film at, just because it's so pretty. But when Illya writes me a piece, he gets his ideas down on paper, and when I bring it to him and I say, that's not possible, he's like, well, just figure it out. I don't care, just do something, figure it out. So.
And amazingly, she always does. Very rarely, when I say this, I mean, well, you can change some things, you can change the notes, or you can, I'm not that attached. I'm attached to the instrument, to the sound, but, make sure it sounds good. But I would say 98% of the time, she plays it exactly how I wrote it.
Which is interesting, because he writes it down originally, at any rate. He writes it down like for the piano. Like it looks more like a piano piece than for violin. And maybe I just know you well enough, and we figure it out together.
Wonderful. So we will now hear 3 movements from the solo violin Partita. Wow, thank you so much. I remember hearing portions of this partita at Avaloch, and it is so exciting and rewarding to get to see and hear these videos now. Beautiful piece, beautiful performance, so special. So thank you so much for sharing those. So the music we've heard this evening is going to be available on your new album, as we've mentioned, September 23rd, all Illya's music. Very, very exciting. I just wanted to also mention that aTonalHits, in addition to the videos you've seen tonight, have a really huge breadth to their career. They are pedagogues with their own methods, their own publications for teaching. They also perform a really, really wide range of music from the canon, as well as the kind of corners of the repertoire, which I really enjoy hearing. They have a very prolific YouTube channel. So there are so many things happening in your careers. I know that. And I invite you to share just anything else that's going on for you right now that you would like to share with us. I know it's kind of a strange time in the profession, but I'd love to hear more about what aTonalHits are up to.
Well, you know, of course, during the pandemic, there's so many things that are closed, but last year we started a concert series in New York, and that was really nice. And the last concert had to be canceled, and we were starting to get a little bit more people into the door, and so we were very excited about that. But this year, for now, we have not really planned too much with that. However, this time was really great to learn new repertoire, to reflect on future, and the YouTube channel, concentrate on the YouTube channel, especially. It has grown from, I think, from like 800 subscribers to almost 8,000 now.
Yeah.
So we are quite happy about that, and we want to continue to grow that. So yeah.
So let's see. I think I was really kind of bummed out about the, obviously not performing, but when it does come back on, our concert series we do homebrew also. So we would get our friends together in a little venue in New York and bring our beer and play music and talk. So this also, like Illya was saying, it gives us a chance to, both of us assigned ourselves a big project to learn back in March when we were all freaking out. So I learned typically the E major Bach Partita and the Yazai second sonata Obsession. So those go well hand in hand, and Illya learned.
Yeah, I learned 111 by Beethoven and a Partita by Bach, a minor Partita, and many other pieces. And we also recorded during this time because, I have a great piano in our bedroom instead of the bed. So this was, and I have all the equipment here to make a professional recording. So that's what we did for most of spring, and we now it's actually editing all of the footage and all of that takes the longest. So there is another Bach album, solo Bach album, that's going to be coming out soon, and Katha will be recording her Partita soon.
Oh yeah, so there's a solo Bach album for Illya, and we've got the Brahms, all three Brahms sonatas are just about ready to go, and so there's a million ideas, and then I have a whole file on my phone just for video ideas too. So they get really out there, but we also take a lot of suggestions from the comments. So we have such a nice community on YouTube. Actually, it's, of course you get the trolls, which you just report, but generally people have been so interested and so kind and have been giving us great ideas. So loads more to do.
And you know, not at risk of sounding insensitive, this is one of the greatest times in history to have a pandemic like this, because we can see people, and there's so many things, even artists, even if you don't have background in recording, you can still do so much inside your house, inside your apartment. So in this way, I feel very fortunate. Yeah. We both feel very fortunate that our life did not actually have to stop, but instead, I think we got more time to reflect and to think about what it means to be a musician, and most importantly, why we are doing music. You know, the reason that are you going to stop just because there is no concerts, or is it going to have a deeper love and deeper understanding for music? And so this is certainly the case with us.
Thank you so much. That is really personal, I know, and very uplifting for you to share that with us. So you both just have such a vibrant sense of initiative and resourcefulness. And of course, you're just overloaded with talent and enthusiasm and love for the art form. So I feel really sure that all of the creative projects you're pursuing will continue to blossom into really incredible contributions. So thank you so much for taking the time to share with me this evening and to share with the broader Avaloch community. I love hearing your performances as always, and I really look forward to the next time we will be in person in the dining room at Avaloch having wonderful conversations and sharing together. So thank you so much, Katha and Illya, aTonalHits.
Thank you, Katherine.
Thank you.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Katherine. It is my great privilege to be in conversation with the Gregory-Kaplan Duo of Katherine Gregory, flute, and David Kaplan, piano. And we are also joined by Timo Andres, composer. So hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Hi.
Nice to be
here. Of course. Yes, thank you. Of course, the last time we were together, myself with Katherine and David, we were at Avaloch about a year ago. And I know you've been to Avaloch many other times prior to that. So I'd like to invite you to share a little bit with this evening's viewers about your experiences at Avaloch and how they have formed a part of your artistic journey.
Absolutely. Well, Avaloch is such an incredible opportunity for artists, musicians, to really focus on a particular aspect of work. And for us, actually last year, it was wonderful to meet you that time. We were gearing up for premiere of a work that Timo wrote for us a little while back on a previous Avaloch visit, his Steady Gaze. And you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think that you know, there's so many opportunities for composers to apply for residencies and go and focus and work and have someone be cooking delicious food for them. But that's a more rare circumstance for performers, because usually if you're invited someplace pretty, it's expected that you play and you perform. And so the truly unique aspect of Avaloch is that the performers are treated almost as with the same status as the composers, that we're also treated as artists who deserve that opportunity to just work and focus and not to have to perform, not to produce. So,
well, and I think it's also, you know, what's special about it is this understanding that creating a new work of music is collaborative. And it's not just that the composer sort of, you know, labors in their ivory tower and then sort of hands down the piece from on high, and then it's, you know, it's all finished and perfect. And it's actually, there's a much greater chance of success if you're able to have that really collaborative, face-to-face, hands-on time where you're all sort of honing the details of the piece together. And yeah, it can be difficult to do that out in the real world. It takes time and money and a lot of planning. And so to have a place like Avaloch that not only makes the time and space for that, but in such a beautiful way is really special.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that, both. So I know that when I met you last year, you were about to perform the premiere of Steady Gaze, from what I remember. Is that right? And was that particularly special to have that time at Avaloch so close to a performance, the first performance of the piece? And did you find that informed or perhaps transformed your working process as a duo while you were in your residency at Avaloch?
Absolutely. There's something very special about having the space, and I mean space in terms of time, but also a location that's sort of transports you away from the daily grind a little bit, where we were able to really refine our collective sound details in the piece, and really go deeper into, okay, what's our roadmap for this piece, especially before sort of the start of last season. And I know for me, and I think for both of us, it provided a really strong foundation then for subsequent performances that we could then build on and keep discovering. You know, each time we come back to this piece, I'm still discovering new things. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could add to that, you know, the process for preparing chamber music, as all of you know, is a little different from preparing solo repertoire. You know, it's much less hermetic and it's social, and you get together and you kind of slap something together, and over the course of many performances, then there's a performative practice that happens, and you get better slowly over time. But thanks to time at Avaloch, then more of that work can be compressed into the initial preparation, so that the chamber music preparation can actually resemble more closely what you might do on your own for a solo piece.
It's almost like looking through a hyper lens of focus. And I would say with all the things going on as diverse performers, you know, in different groups, it really was a privilege to have that hyper focus, especially when you're sending a new piece out into the world, you know.
That is such a beautiful point. I have the same experience when I'm at Avaloch as well. Timo, I was wondering if you could share, you had alluded earlier to the process being very collaborative between composer and performers. And I was wondering if you'd like to share a little bit further about that. For example, do you think of writing for the idiomatic performer something specific about David's sound or Katherine's sound and their collective sound? And did that play a role in the creation of Steady Gaze?
Well, it was interesting because in this case, I was writing for Katherine for the first time, and for David for, you know, uncountable. You know, I've been writing for him and for the two of us, and in various configurations for probably the past, what, 12, 13 years. So our collaboration goes very far back. So I guess at the time that I wrote Steady Gaze, it would have been about 10 years. And so I did, and you know, the fact that I was writing this for them as a couple, I think that was really something that was primarily in my mind. I was thinking about this earlier, actually, when I was sort of anticipating this conversation, is like, you know, what did end up being different about this piece because of who I was writing it for and the circumstances surrounding it. And as far as I remember, I mean, it's hard for me to remember the actual process of writing a piece. I tend to sort of, you know, blank it out, I guess, as soon as it's over. But I do remember there being a nice feeling of, I guess, lack of pressure, if that makes sense. I mean, and it wasn't that I felt like, oh, I could just do anything and it'll be fine. It was like, how to explain this? I mean, I guess in a typical commission, there's always sort of, even though you're not necessarily writing in order to please someone specifically, there's always sort of that sense in the back of your mind, like, oh, this is a transaction of some kind. This is like I'm being hired to perform a service at sort of at the most prosaic level. And when you're writing a piece for friends as more as a gift, there's not that sense. Like even in the very back corner of your head, it's gone. And so that I think it just gave me a feeling of freedom and a feeling of sort of luxuriating in whatever the sounds that I wanted to make were. And I do think the piece ended up being a sort of maybe a little bit of an oddball piece. Not that it sounds, you know, crazy or, you know, sort of outre in any way. I mean, it's a very sort of restrained piece. But I think the way that what the material is and the way it's put together and the way it sort of develops in this very, very leisurely way, perhaps betrays a low degree of stress on my part when I was writing it. That's how I feel about it now, at any rate, you know, a few years removed from the writing process.
That is so interesting. If I may kind of toss the same question to you, Katherine and David, when preparing a piece collaboratively with your composer, with whom I now know you have had a long relationship, David, of collaborating in various ways, did that inform how you approached your parts, how you approached the sound world? Was that a different experience for you?
Well, no, I've gotten used to now the pattern of Katherine answering first and myself answering second.
I thought we'd change it up.
Yeah, let's just really. Yes, I think that I was thinking a lot about what Timo was saying just now about the lack of a transactional quality, which I absolutely agree with, and it's this as he said, a gift. So it's not that there was a lack of professionalism or professional awareness, but there was but there wasn't that the need for anything stilted or formal. Yeah, there was informality about the process. I mean, so playing Timo's music, which has changed, it's not a fixed thing, but it's constantly been changing over the last 10 years, then of course, then I feel like, you know, I have pre-existing notions of what things are supposed to sound like, or what he in particular means when he writes notes down in a certain way. And actually the renewing joy or the renewing fun of thinking that you know better than you might have the last time is that those things are also shifting. So the challenge to one's expectations and the challenge to one's preconceptions is rewarding in and of itself, you know. So of course, then there is a residual compounding knowledge, I think, that's relevant. But then just as often, I remember the circumstance of thinking very, very securely, oh, this is definitely should sound like this or go like that. And then actually discovering through collaboration, through workshopping, that Timo had something different in mind, you know, and that I was wrong, you know, which is really fun in terms of that's really fun in terms of an evolving sense of what someone's music is and can be.
I really enjoyed the process. I can remember, was it the Mozart room? One of the big piano rooms at Avaloch, and we were workshopping some sound. I remember Timo, you were saying, oh, what can the flute do? Like, what's the extreme of, you know, playing something high but soft, or, you know, what would this sound like, or, you know, and I really enjoyed.
What is this thing?
Well, I really enjoyed that part of the process. It's a little bit like mixing colors or mixing paints. And also for me, as a flute player, how can I communicate this? And actually, how can I think about it? And actually, what would be an interesting color with this chord? Or how can I blend my sound a little better? And so then coming back to the piece, even in some initial sketches and things like that, for me, it was coming back to this idea of mixing paints. Like, oh, I wonder what he means by this. And then, you know, when we were workshopping some of the first couple of run-throughs, that's something that always came back to me, and clarifying. End of the first page there's the big fermata at the end of the first section, and trying to get closer to what Timo had in mind for sound there, you know, going from, evolving from the flutter tongue into the sort of.
Well, and I think, you know, specifically for your part, Katherine, you know, I have such a sort of confidence writing for piano as a pianist, and I don't bring that to flute. I mean, I've written for flute a lot, obviously, over my life, but I don't think that my flute writing necessarily has a particular sound to it, the way my piano writing does. And so I think that maybe necessitated you bringing more ideas of those kind to the performance. Whereas with David's part, it was maybe, I was maybe more specific in what I asked of him, just because I know, I have a better, more specific sense of the specific color that I want to draw from the keyboard. And I know Dave's playing and Dave's sound so well in sort of the specificity of like how he voices chords and harmonies and things like that. So in that way, it was, you know, kind of, it's kind of funny because one thinks of a piece like this as maybe the piano in more of an accompanimental role. But I think in this piece, as you can tell from the very first, that it's very equal, that it's very much it's a duo, it's a sort of co-supporting relationship. Everything in the piece is sort of in pairs, you know, down to the material itself, which is all these sort of two-note and endless variations on these two-note phrases, to structurally that every section of the piece has a mirror and it's sort of a big palindrome. And that was sort of the idea that I started out with, was that it was going to be this piece about you know, couples of various different kinds, and that the instruments would be on equal footing but play very different roles. And I guess one of the ways in which I was thinking like, well, this is maybe a piece that I would, or something that I would not have tried in a less relaxed or less open environment, is just how the piece starts. We have this funny little lick in the flute, and then the piano plays alone for a couple minutes, you know, and the flute is just sort of sitting there, and you're kind of wondering, like, what is, is this, what kind of piece is this?
This you lost.
It's like, right. Yeah, it's a I guess a quiet kind of risk-taking, but there is this very sort of ambiguous, enigmatic, wandering section for piano alone that is the opening of the piece, which typically you would say, like, oh, you want to start a piece in sort of a, I don't know, a more confident or unambiguous or, you know, I think it's intriguing in its own sort of weird, quiet way.
Yeah, I mean, if there's a rhetoric of two instruments playing together, then it's rhetorically interesting, if not just, if not a little strange, or at least atypical.
And later on, a couple minutes later, you hear that same music with the flute line, with the various permutations of the flute's opening lick. And you see, like, oh, actually, these two things are meant to go together.
Well, we have so much suspense built now. I think we should listen to the performance of this wonderful piece, Steady Gaze.
I don't think I've ever been present for a live performance of this piece, which is kind of strange. I mean, I sadly was out of town for the premiere. I had a gig in another city. And then, of course, you know,
we even played it at Carnegie Hall.
Right, exactly. And then, but then, you know, a couple months later, it was like the pandemic happened, and so you guys weren't able to sort of take it on the road as much. And though you have performed it a couple of times now remotely.
We've performed it in many living rooms.
Right, exactly. I remember there was one like in June or July that you guys did on the internet. And it's been, even though I haven't been physically present for any of them, it's been so gratifying to sort of watch the piece take shape more and more as you guys play it. And it really has become your piece. Like it feels very, and that was also sort of the intention, is I wanted to create something that felt very comfortable, very like a good sofa that you guys can live with for a long time and break in, and sort of something that was very homey in a way. You know, there's something, you know, I'm of course, you know, so pleased that the premiere was at Carnegie Hall, but there's part of me that feels like this piece is very much a home piece. You know, there is something very private about this piece that's not, it doesn't have that sort of outward facing show of unrestrained emotion or virtuosity. Everything is kind of on a much smaller scale.
Yeah, completely. It's much more a stew or a long simmering soup than, you know, a 5-course degustation menu.
Yeah, exactly.
And there is something germane to it in terms of its domesticity, which reminds me of like the Kortag pieces for 4 hands.
Totally. Yeah, and I love those.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much so much 4 hands music is like that, but not all of it has germane to its musical language elements of that domesticity, and in the same way, so much 4 hands music is suggestive of orchestra music or something like that. It's something very public and outward facing music, but that Kortag certainly does, and I think your piece also, as we've been saying, captures that.
And each time we revisit it, it does feel a little bit like putting on a crazy jumper or a crazy, you know, it's like just that little bit more comfortable, and it's like, oh yes, this fits even better now, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely the Mr. Rogers of.
Yeah, well, and I think part of that is just sort of harmonically, that's how it started, was just sort of enjoying the sounds of these chords that open the piece. And that's something that I know, you know, I think specifically applies to David's piano playing, is like, I always feel like there's such a kind of root level, no pun intended, harmonic understanding of the music at hand, is that it's very informed by this sort of harmonic through line. It's a very kind of, I guess, more of a 19th century approach in a way, but I think something that applies equally well to any music that that kind of has this vertical construction to it.
Are there any, I know things are very vague in our profession right now, I should preface that, but are there any future performances of the piece that you would like to share with the Avaloch community, or any other upcoming projects of other works, or other little tentacles of your professional and creative lives that you would like to share?
Well, we have actually just put together a bunch of programs, you know, for like 2027 and 28. First,
Stay
that we
tuned.
hope to
And beyond.
but no, but in seriousness, that there is a program. Well, there's several of the programs that we put together that include Timo's piece from different angles, and one is sort of framing American music in general. So putting him in the context of Copland and David Lang and several others. And then another program is more thematic, and it's about, it includes pieces that pertain to romance in some degree. And it has the Schubert Lumen variations, and it has the Franc Sonata, which is for the violin sonata, which is a piece that Katherine and I have played an enormous amount, and which was a wedding gift for the violinist Eugene Zai.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And his wife as well. And then Timo's piece, which also was in a sense a wedding present. So we do have plans to perform it, and
as soon as we're able to, it's very much on the cards to professionally record this and actually do a video project. And actually, it's interesting to talk about this and what the right aesthetic is for this. And
no better than the living room.
right. I mean, maybe now.
I think something very comfortable, you know.
I wonder where we can find the living room to record
lamps and overstuffed chairs, and I mean, come over. There's plenty of space.
Yes.
I think that's great, and I mean, I kind of like the idea that you guys will have spent so much time with the piece before making a sort of definitive recording of it, because I feel like often these studio things can feel a little rushed or a little hasty. I know there are plenty of recordings that I've made that I look back on and think like, oh, what if I'd waited a couple of years to record that piece?
Totally, especially with contemporary music, it's making a recording is almost part of that contractual sort of transactional relationship of the commissioning and the performing, and it's really very mercenary, as you were
it can be.
So and it's about documenting it for the purposes of the composer almost as much as anything else. So the idea of recording something because you have a particular relationship with it as a performer is usually a privilege reserved for music already deemed to be in the repertoire.
Mm-hmm. Very exciting. Certainly hope that I'll get to hear these programs either at Avaloch or some other more formal setting in the future. I very much look forward.
Me too. I mean, that'll be the day when I'm present for a live performance of this piece. As far as my activities go, I'm trying to think. I mean, again, it's like I have some performances planned this coming season. I mean, who knows what form they'll take. Stay tuned. So in the meantime, I guess I've been leaning pretty hard into my YouTube channel, making a lot of videos from home, and
link in bio.
Link in bio, yeah. YouTube.com/Timo Andres. Be sure to like and subscribe, fam.
Definitely, we will certainly. I'm sure will have many new fans just from this evening of our broader Avaloch community who will have been so fortunate to have heard you speaking about your work. Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Katherine, for leading such a great discussion, and always nice to see you, Dave and Katherine, and good luck with the rest of your moving in.
Thank you. I hope to see you all in the flesh sooner rather than later.
Indeed.
Absolutely. So on behalf of Fred and Deb and the whole Avaloch community, thank you so much for joining me in conversation. I really, really appreciate your time and for sharing so freely about such personal, insightful elements of your lives. And I really look forward to being together at Avaloch in person before.
For sure.